There is a fear inside you that doesn't feel like fear at all. It doesn't shake your hands. It doesn't make your heart race. It doesn't warn you with panic or terror. It hides beneath your calm, beneath your routines, beneath the life you believe you chose. It operates silently, elegantly, almost intelligently, and yet it shapes almost every decision you make. This is the hidden fear, the one that doesn't activate your alarms, because it learned long ago that the most effective way to control you is to stay invisible. Every human being has a fear like this, a fear so old, so deeply wired, that you no longer recognize it as fear. You recognize it as your personality, as just the way things are, as the kind of person I am. But this fear is not you. It's a survival blueprint written in moments you barely remember. It began in childhood, but not in ways you would expect. It wasn't shaped only by big events, loud conflicts, or dramatic memories. It was shaped by something far more subtle, the emotional atmosphere around you. Your younger self was always studying the world, collecting patterns, interpreting silence, tone, tension, and unpredictability, not consciously, biologically. Your nervous system was learning what is safe, what is dangerous, what creates connection, what creates loss, what must be avoided to stay protected, and eventually it identified a core threat. For some people, the core threat is abandonment. For others, rejection. For others, failure. For others, disappointing someone. For others, being seen too deeply. For others, losing control. For others, becoming too much or not enough. This core threat becomes a hidden fear that governs your life. It dictates the relationships you choose. It filters the opportunities you allow yourself to pursue. It shapes the goals you abandon the moment they start to work. It determines how you show up, how you love, how you retreat, and how you shrink. But the most dangerous part is this: a hidden fear doesn't stop you by scaring you. It stops you by convincing you. It convinces you that it's not the right time. It convinces you that you're not ready. It convinces you that you should wait, prepare more, think more, reconsider. It convinces you that staying where you are is wise, responsible, realistic. Your fear doesn't need to shout. It simply needs to feel reasonable. And for years, maybe decades, you've obeyed it without ever realizing you were obeying anything at all. But there is a moment, a rare, powerful moment, when life exposes the hidden fear. A moment where something inside you whispers, "This limitation isn't mine." That moment is the beginning of freedom, because once the fear becomes visible, it loses the power to quietly decide your future. In the next part, you will discover exactly how this fear was formed and why it remains so persuasive even today. There is a moment in life when the mind decides something is too heavy to carry, too painful to process, too overwhelming to understand. And so, without asking for permission, the mind hides it. But the body doesn't. The body remembers everything the mind buries. Every emotional wound you couldn't face became a physical memory. Your breath changed, your muscles tightened, your posture shifted, and your nervous system rewired itself to survive what your consciousness could not handle. This is why you sometimes feel emotions you can't explain, tension you can't release, or fears that appear without any obvious cause. Your body is not malfunctioning, it is communicating. Because while the mind forgets to protect you, the body remembers to warn you. When a painful experience happened, a betrayal, abandonment, humiliation, sudden loss, emotional chaos, your nervous system goes into survival mode. But survival mode isn't temporary. If it activates too early in life or stays activated for too long, it becomes your baseline. Your body begins to treat ordinary situations as threats because it learned to expect danger everywhere. This is how emotional wounds become physical patterns. A sharp comment makes your heart race. A moment of silence makes your chest tighten. Someone withdrawing triggers panic. Someone getting close triggers fear. None of these reactions belong to the present moment. They belong to the wound. Your body has been waiting for years for you to pay attention. And here's the part people never realize. The body stores emotional wounds through sensations, not memories. This means you will feel the wound long before you ever recognize it. You might suddenly feel heaviness when nothing is wrong, restlessness when nothing is urgent, fear when nothing is threatening, sadness when nothing happened, tension when no danger exists, exhaustion when you've barely moved. These sensations are not random. They are the physical echo of something unresolved, something your mind labeled as forgotten, but your body never accepted. Because the body doesn't care about forgetting. The body cares about completion. An emotional wound becomes stored when an experience had too much intensity and not enough expression, when something happened inside you, but there was no space, safety, or support to release it. So your body kept it for you, not as punishment, as protection. Unfortunately, this protection has a cost. When the body stores unresolved experiences, it starts shaping your behavior as well. You avoid certain conversations without knowing why. You resist closeness without understanding the discomfort. You feel unsafe even in safe environments. You become reactive to small things because your body is still fighting old battles. What you call overreacting, your body calls remembering. What you call, I don't know why I feel this way, your body calls unfinished. What you call, just how I am, your body calls a wound you have not met yet. And until you learn to recognize these sensations as messages, not flaws, the body will continue to speak louder than your mind. Because the body will not forget what the mind refuses to face. Every person carries a fear so old, so deeply wired, that the conscious mind no longer recognizes it, but the body does. The nervous system reacts before you think. Your breath shortens before you understand why, and your behavior shifts before you realize you're being influenced. This is the hidden fear loop, a self-reinforcing cycle that silently determines what you pursue, what you avoid, who you trust, and how far you allow yourself to grow. This loop begins with a trigger, often something subtle, a tone of voice, a facial expression, a moment of silence, a sense that you might disappoint someone, or a situation where you feel slightly out of place. It doesn't take much for the body to remember a fear that the mind has forgotten. The second stage happens instantly. The body reacts. Your chest tightens, your stomach contracts. You feel small, or restless, or suddenly unsure of yourself. These reactions aren't random. They are stored survival responses. They are the echoes of old emotional wounds disguised as present moment instincts. But the real trap appears in the third stage. Your mind creates a story to justify the fear. I shouldn't try this now. Maybe this isn't for me. I don't want to make things worse. Someone like me wouldn't succeed anyway. I should wait until I feel more ready. None of those thoughts are actually logical. They feel logical because they protect the fear. The brain prefers emotional consistency to emotional truth. It prefers repeating the past over confronting something unfamiliar. And so the loop completes itself. Trigger, body response, fear narrative, self-limiting action. Then it repeats, and repeats, and repeats, until you begin to mistake your fear for your personality. Until you call the pattern just the way I am. Until you build a life that feels safer than it feels right. This is why your hidden fear shapes your entire life. Not because the fear is strong, but because the loop runs silently. You don't notice that you step back. You don't notice that you stayed quiet. You don't notice the things you avoid. Your mind makes the avoidance feel natural, responsible, even wise. But here's the turning point, the part most people never see. The moment you become aware of the loop weakens. When you feel a reaction and name it, this is fear, not truth, and the story loses its power. When you observe the narrative forming instead of obeying it, the cycle cracks. And when you take an action your fear doesn't expect, even a small one, your nervous system begins to rewrite what it believes is possible. Awareness breaks the loop. Choice rewires it. Repetition replaces it. You don't escape the hidden fear by fighting it. You escape it by refusing to live according to its script. There is a moment in every transformation when knowledge is no longer enough. You've understood the fear. You've seen how it hides inside silence, inside old memories, inside impulses you never question. You've recognized how it shapes your choices, your relationships, your reactions, the very path your life follows. But awareness alone is only the door. To walk through it, you must do something the fear was certain you'd never do. You must confront it with presence. Because the fear that shaped your entire life was never truly about danger. It was about absence. Absence of safety. Absence of guidance. Absence of emotional space to process what hurt you. And whatever you couldn't process then, your body is still trying to protect now. So the real transformation begins with a single question, one most people never dare to ask. What is my fear trying to protect me from today? Not what it protected you from years ago, not what it shielded you from as a child, but today, right now. Because fears that were once necessary can become prisons when the world has already changed, yet your nervous system still believes it hasn't. To break the hidden fear, you must teach your mind something it never learned, that you are no longer who you were when the fear was born. And this happens through small, deliberate practices, not dramatic awakenings. It begins when, instead of running from emotional discomfort, you turn toward it and observe the tightening in your chest, the urge to stay silent, the instinct to retreat, the impulse to sabotage something good. Observe it like a scientist, not a victim. Because once you can witness the fear, you are no longer inside it. Then comes the next step. Introduce micro exposures to the very things your fear convinced you to avoid. Not giant leaps. Your brain rejects those. But small, tolerable steps that gently update your nervous system. speaking one truth you would normally hide, expressing one need you would usually swallow, staying present for 10 seconds longer than you're comfortable, letting a moment of vulnerability exist without rushing to shut it down, allowing something good to remain good, receiving instead of overgiving. These micro moments rewrite the emotional map the fear once drew. And the final step, the one that makes all the others possible, is this. You must stop obeying the identity the fear created for you. Because fear doesn't only tell you what to avoid, it tells you who you are. It whispers, you're not someone who deserves that. You're not someone who can handle this. You're not someone who is chosen. You're not someone who is safe. But none of that is true. It never was. Fear created a version of you that was easier to protect. A smaller you, a quieter you, a safer you. Breaking the hidden fear means letting that version retire. And here is the most powerful truth of all. Your fear is not a prophecy, it is a memory. And memories can be released. If this part of the video stirred something in you, a realization, a quiet truth, a feeling you can't fully name, write in the comments, I am ready to face the fear. Because saying this isn't just symbolic. It's the moment your future stops being controlled by the past.